everybody, and welcome to House of Chi Yoga. Today I want to do just a little bit of stretch, so let's get right into it. Let's do feet out in front, extended forward, and just start opening and closing through the ankle joints. Maybe find some circling through the feet. Try to spread the toes away from each other. And now keep the feet flexed and pull them out so the pinky tips are working towards the floor. And then bring them together. Still working them flexed, but bringing the toes together. Do that one more time. Pinkies go out and away, and then in toward midline. Ooh, I pulled out my hip flexors. Okay, if you could reach peace fingers to the big toe, grab your peace fingers with the big toe if you're not there yet. Just bind to the back of the knee or the back of the calf somewhere. So from there, we're going to add a little bit of a pull. We just want to create a little bit of resistance and push the feet forward. I'm pushing from the balls of my feet, but I'm bringing my toes with me. And then you can go in a big sweeping circle. Do a few one way and a few the opposite. You can add a little bit more resistance. And then inhale, flat back. Keep the legs active. I'm engaging my quads. And then exhaling into a fold, now opening the hamstrings. Do that one more time. Inhale, lift up. And exhale, fold. If you want, you can release the bind. You can grab the edges of the feet. You can start walking the hands forward. But keep the toes working towards the shins. Slowly unroll vertebrae by vertebrae. And bend the right foot out. Grab the inside of the foot of the ankle. Bring it in. Now bend the left foot out. Grab the inside of the foot of the ankle, bring it in to Baddha Konasana. Now the feet are together, you can use the thumbs to press out all parts of the foot. Go in between the toes, tops of the toes, inside the arch. And then bring the hands, actually I'm going to take my forearm, the weight of my forearm, and place them just under my knee and start working some weight down. Now as you do this, engage your quad muscles and release through the groin and the hip flexors. Release through the inner thighs. Keep breathing. Try to use one more exhale, get a little closer to the mat. And coming up through center. Walk the hands back and behind the body and take the feet to hips distance. If you want, you can go a little bit wider for a deeper stretch. Now windshield wipe the knees across the mat. So if you're struggling to keep the hands down, that's fine, you can let the hands follow. Eventually, you want to be able to keep the hands down and get a big stretch all along the side body and across the chest by keeping the palms planted and the chest squared. Holding the knees to one side, so I'm going to start on my right side, and then keep breathing. Maybe lift a little higher through the heart. Come back in through the exhale, center, and switch sides. Knees down, press through the palms, open up the heart. Exhale, gaze down, feet towards center. Take the sits bones down, legs out wide, and then circle through the ankle joints one more time. This time we're going to land in a point, a push forward, and lift up tall, walk the forehead forward. So I'm trying to lengthen from the tailbone out the crown of the head, keeping the chest nice and open. If you want to add some movement, you can use the fingertips on the mat. I'm not using the arms per se, I'm just kind of giving some support. If you can add that movement without the hands, you can just bring the hands up off the mat. Hopefully you feel it deeper in the hamstrings here. And then you can hold a fold, either hands down or continue to keep the hands off the mat. Work navel to spine. Exhaling as you roll up vertebrae by vertebrae, keep pushing the sitting bones down. Ah, beautiful. Feet to hips distance. We're going to grab onto the shin. So I'm going to grab at the base just above the ankle and pull up towards my knee. Now keep pulling, keep pulling, keep pulling. You can move the feet around, feel some stretching. Feel the ankles moving, not moving, but stretching. And now we're going to do the opposite. Now we're going to go hands to the back of the legs, right above the ankle, pull up towards the calves, and again, work through the foot. Nice. All right. Let's cross the ankles after we fix our pants. And then go to quadruped. Toes are tucked under, push some weight back into the toes, and just press into the sides of the hips. Feel some space being created along the rib cage and the intercostal muscles. Now as you shift forward, open every fingertip to the mat and add a roll through the shoulders. So I scoop the elbows out and scoop the elbows in and lengthen. Keep moving, find some movement through the scapula as you do this. Last one, elbow creases are forward. I'm going to protract through my upper back, squeeze the hips and the glutes in, and then inhale, push the heart forward, lift the tailbone. Exhale, protract and lift. Inhale to open. One more time, exhale, hold your exhale, move through the rib cage, squeeze, try to empty through the lungs, massage the internal organs. then go back to a neutral spine. Untuck the toes this time. The left palm reaches out and the right toes reach out. Look for length from fingertip to toe. Keep reaching, maybe lift a little bit higher. Use your glute muscles and your back muscles. Keep the tailbone working towards the back wall. Or if you don't have a wall behind you, then just working behind you. And then bring the right foot across and try to take the hand to reach towards the toe. So as I'm doing this, I'm creating this big C curve in the opposite side of my body. Hopefully you feel a stretch along the outside of the hip, outside of the ribs. Keep reaching. And bring the left palm back down. Right knee behind the left. Open up the toes and use your hands to help hold the weight as you shift back into just a little baby knee stack. You don't have to go far into it. You don't have to release the sit bones all the way to the mat. I like to just kind of wiggle my hips around, find some movement, try to use my wiggling and my breath to go deeper. Okay, now shifting forward. Flex the feet before you move. Keep the feet flexed and walk the hands to the top of the mat. Unroll the legs. And this time I'm going to take my legs back a little farther so I can lift up into a cobra. Fingertips are forward. Roll the shoulders back and away from the ears. Pull the triceps to the back wall. Keep breathing, filling up the space in the front body. Check in with the space across the collarbones. There's plenty of space to breathe through the front body. Exhale, tuck the chin to the chest, but keep the shoulders back away from the ears. Inhale to gaze up. Exhale to tuck. Inhale, gaze up. Exhale, tuck, stay there. Push the hips back into a child's pose. You can take the knees wider if you want. Keep walking the fingertips forward, creating more space. Allow the shoulders to be heavy on the mat. Allow the hips to be heavy. Allow the breath to be heavy. One more inhale. Exhale, rolling yourself forward. Let's go vertebrae by vertebrae as we unroll towards the cobra. Not all the way there though. Option to gaze up and then re-roll back towards child's pose. So you can do as much movement as you want with this position, with this movement. You can just do a little bit of pulse forward, or you can take it all the way up with the gaze and lengthen through the whole front body. We're gonna go for one more. Nice and slow, intentional with the movement. And this time we're going to go back into a tucked toe, downward facing dog. Walk the knees across midline. I want you to think about pulling the heels down to the mat to lengthen to the outsides of the legs. Outsides of the kneecaps, back of the kneecaps. Whew, it's very tight today, I feel it. Now bring it back down through quadruped. And this time the right palm and the left toes reach out. Keep reaching, reaching, reaching. Maybe lift a little bit higher, keep the heart open. And then your left foot is reaching across to the right side and the right hand is reaching towards the toe. So you have to keep pushing into the toe to push into the outside of the opposing hip. So create that C curve, keep breathing. And then bring the right hand down, walk the left knee in and use your hands to support your weight to go into your knee stack. I'm not just sinking all my weight down right away. Unless you've already worked out and you're nice and warm, then feel free to go all the way into a knee stack. It's a little chilly in here today, so I'm going to hold my weight in my hands a little bit. One more inhale. Exhale to sink a little bit deeper. Now engage the feet. Start walking yourself forward and take it back to plank this time. From plank, we're going to press into a downward facing dog. Bend the knees to a hover and push the hips behind you. Now feel the rib cage close and push into the palms to create more length along the spine. Keep breathing. I'm going to go to a side angle so you can see a different view. So from here with the knees bent to a hover, if my rib cage is open, close it and push back, creating more space along the spine. Feel the shoulders rolling away from the ears. And then we're going to come down into quadruped one more time. I'm going to square back forward just to move through the hips. So you can take an isolated circle right to left through the hip joint. You can point the toe, you can flex the toe. Just have some sort of flex point on the foot. Now hold the left foot up and we're going to flex it. Pull the knee down and the heel towards the sky. So my leg is to the outside of my body. And now the heel down, knee up, find your core, hip connection. Take the knee down, heel up. And heel down, knee up. Now extend the left leg behind you and take it to a three-legged dog. One inhale. Exhale, pull the left foot outside the left pinky and lower it into a low lunge. So I'm a little bit wider. I like to have my hands wider. But you want to keep the outside foot planted right next to the pinky and the knee close to the shoulder. So from here, you can either hold and just breathe into the right hip flexor if that's enough. I'm going to add a cat-cow movement through the spine so I can work even more into that right hip. So I create traction by pulling my hands down and my heart open and then tucking through the ribs. And as I tuck through the ribs, I'm not pulling my hips back, I'm pulling my navel to spine so I can get even deeper stretching on that right side hip flexor to psoas region. Hi, and it goes deeper. So keep breathing. Use your exhales to keep sinking into position. I'm going to add one more cat-cow spine. And then I'm going to come down into a static hold. So either stay on the hands or you can come to the forearms. But I'm going to try to keep my left knee in line with my body. If your back toes are tucked, that's fine. Sometimes I tuck them, sometimes I release them flat to the mat. Now from here, think about the right side hamstring. I'm using my forearms to kind of drive myself forward and pull my right heel to my glute. So if you were to see me from the side, I think it's time for two cameras. See me from the side, I'm pulling and bringing my heel up. Now I'm sinking even heavier into that right side hip joint. I'll take one or two more breaths there. And then letting the right foot fall to the mat, hands down. Lift to a high lunge stance, just rock front to back. So working through both legs, allowing the spine to release, the hips to release. Last one, squaring towards the side of the mat. So I'm going to square towards the right side. I'm going to line the feet up, inhale to a flat back. And exhale, hinge at the hip to a fold. Get the crown of the head to the mat. Couple options. You can take the hands to the bind on the outside of the leg. You can just keep them on the mat. You can walk them under the legs. I'm going to push them down and pull my crown of the head down. Now have a nice stretch, but I'm actively working to get my thigh and belly closer. Actively working the lats to pull the chest closer to the thigh. And I might be a little too tall. My head is on the mat, so I'm going to close my stance a little bit so I can create more elevation. Now micro bend the knees, walk the fingertips under the shoulders, and just find any kind of movement along the hip line. You can push into a lunge, you can circle out through the hips, you can roll through the spine, any movement that is calling to you, any movement your body is calling. Squaring back forward. So I just point both my toes to the front of the mat, hands down, lift the hips to step into a downward facing dog, and then walk the feet out from downward facing. Bringing the knees down. We're going to inhale, right palm to the sky. Exhale, thread it under. You go all the way across the mat so you're opening up the scapula away from the spine. If you want to go a little bit farther with that movement, instead of having the hand in line with the shoulder, I'm going to now reach down towards the back wall or towards my bottom foot. But I have to make sure I'm keeping the space from the ear to the shoulder line. And you also want to make sure that this hip is pushing back. So you're not crunching up through the side body, but you're still keeping that length. Sometimes it helps just to take your hand, give it a little tap, just to remind yourself to keep that space through the spine. Let's take one more breath. Keep the shoulders away from the ears. You're stretching the traps. You're not engaging into them. And then use that top hand to press yourself up, unthread the bottom arm, and come back through center. So now we're going to our left side. From quadruped, inhale, left palm up, and exhale to thread under. So I'm going to rotate so you can see me from this side. You're either in line with the shoulder, take a breath there. Think about pulling the scapula away from the spine. If you want to go farther, that hand, the hand that's threaded, reaches down, and that allows you to roll higher on top of the shoulder. But remember, we're not engaging the trap. We're trying to create a little pressure to open up the traps, get the shoulders away from the ears. Give that hand a little tap to the hip, get all that space through the side body. I'm going to take my top arm up. Especially if you have both arms long, you can really reach fingertip to fingertip. If you feel your side body holding a crunch, release the crunch, create the space. One more inhale. And then exhale, press the palm down, unthread the needle, and come back through center. Beautiful. Tuck the toes under. As you shift back onto the feet, take the knees wide and go into a malasana. So my heels are a little bit in, my toes are a little bit out, and I'm just going to press into the palms. If it feels difficult to sit here in malasana, then you can sit on a block or sit on a pillow, or maybe roll the mat up underneath your heels, something to help you kind of elevate, because you want to be able to sit and sink into the sits bones. You can use your elbows to push the knees wide. And then if you want to go even farther, imagine the sits bones pulling down, and then imagine the crown of the head also pulling down. So you're simultaneously working from both ends of the spine to create a nice C curve again in the back, and just create a big stretch all along the fascia line and the muscles there in the back body. I know I can go a little bit farther, so I'm going to take my hands to the back of my head and just gently, gently, gently guide my head closer to the mat. So I'm not looking for a crunch in the neck, I'm looking for space and length along the neck and along the back body. Let's take one more breath here. And then exhale, fingertips come down. And we're going to stand the hips up into a forward fold. My thigh is already close to my belly. I'm just going to keep it there. Then I'll pedal the heels backward. So with this pedal, I'm lengthening up through the back of my leg, pulling my sits bones behind me, creating space and mobility all the way through the hips. Last one. Walk the hands forward until you can come back down into quadruped. And this time the right toes are going to extend behind. Now from there, tuck the left toes, lift it into a three-legged dog. And then on the exhale, you bring the right foot to the right pinky, lower your back knee. So remember, I have a little bit wider of a stance. If yours is closer, that's fine. Keep the right foot down, keep the right knee close to the body, and then sink into the hip flexors. So you have the option to start working towards your cat-cow spine. Remember, this is to get deeper into that hip flexor psoas region. So you're not trying to bring the hips back, but you're keeping the hips down and then moving the spine. I'm going to do one more. And then find a static hold. Hips down and soft. You can go hands or forearms. For me, I try to keep that right knee close. I have a really tight right hip, so I struggle with this one. If it gets a little bit painful in your hips, remember you can always find a little bit of movement to help out. One more inhale. And then we're going to create that pull through the back hamstring. So whether your forearms are down or your hands are down, you're pulling forward and you're pulling the left heel to your glute. Keep the toe pointed. Keep sinking down through the hips and keep breathing, most importantly. One more breath. Exhale, gently release the left toes, walk it back to the palms, and then I'm going to shift into my hips up and forward back movement. Just open up the legs, any kind of movement you need here. It's great to give yourself these little opportunities to have a little bit of guided movement and then a little bit of free-flowing movement. Squaring towards the left wall this time. So whichever one you did, you can start with on this side. Inhale to a flat back. Exhale, whatever you did with your hands before, go ahead and go there. And then see if you can pull yourself a little bit deeper into your folds. On the exhale, bend the knees, breathe square forward. This time we're going to go into a downward facing dog. And then knees come down together at the center of the mat, toes untucked. And we're going to take 3 rolls through the spine. You inhale to open the front body. And then exhale to press into the palms and create hollow space in the front body. Inhale to lift and open. Exhale to pull back and round. One more. Beautiful, holding at the top. Inhale, palms rise. Take the fingertips behind the head and just support the head I have my hands bound and my thumbs down, so each thumb can support the side of the neck. So now I have full support there, and I'm going to lift up and away. You can lift up taller through the sternum. And you can bend back a little deeper if you like. Coming back through center. The right hand is just going to gently hold the weight of the head as you let the ear fall to the shoulder. You can stay here. You can roll the left shoulder away. You can pull it away from the body, either at shoulder level, or you can go right through the floor to go more into the front of the shoulder. Back through center. Before we switch sides, just draw the chin right to left very gently. Notice what's happening in the neck. And then let's switch sides. The left hand holds the weight of the head. You can stay here. You can roll. You can take the palm out and away. Ooh, that is a tight bicep. Or you can go down to the floor and away. If you go through all those little movements, you might find one that is the most tight and you can hold. My bicep seems to be really tight today. I'm going to hold this top one. Oh my goodness. Stretch every day. I don't know how my things get so tight, but you know, that's why you got to have daily practice. Every day. Woo, release it. Any kind of movement that's calling to you for your shoulders, your neck, your chest. Take a couple exhales out of the mouth, just releasing the jaw. So let the mouth open. Let the throat soften. And then the fingertips are just pulling down any energy, any stuck energy through the throat. You go behind the ears, and then across the collarbones and away. Take the hands from the top of the head all the way down the body. One more. Beautiful. Now, to finish off, we're going to go into a rabbit's pose. So you're looking for one more deep C curve in the spine. If you're not familiar with rabbit's pose, maybe start, I'll turn to the side. Start with the hands supporting here and just pulling navel to spine and bringing the forehead down. So if you feel like that's already enough, then great, stay there. What I want you to do is make sure the front body is engaging so that you can release into the back body. If you want to go farther, you can take the hands underneath the bottom and work the crown of the head down in front of the knee. And from there, you start lifting into the spine. Remember, engaging front body, but basically holding that crunch. If you want to go all the way, then the hands can saddle grip. So my hand is like this, flipped to my heel, and the crown of my head is working down to the mat. Now instead of pushing forward into my traps, into my upper back, I'm lifting up through the mid-back, lifting up into the spine. So I press into my hands, but then I lift up into the core. So if you feel a lot of pressure in the front of the shoulder, into the head, into the neck, you want to take that energy and lift it up towards the ceiling. Create a big C curve, a big round through the spine. Now you're holding there, you're breathing, the shoulders are back away from the ears, and you're just breathing into all that back fascia, trying to release it. Let's take a few more breaths. When you're ready to come out, you just bring the tailbone down, and you can roll temple to temple across the forehead. We're going to go into one finisher on the hips. You can slowly bring it up. And I'm going to go from this side angle so that hopefully you can see what I'm doing, and then I'm going to shift forward so you can see from that angle as well. So from pose, we have 3 90s. You start walking the legs wide, and the feet are flexed. You have to keep the feet flexed so that you're protecting the knee joint. So right now I'm pretty high because I want to make sure I can look back and check my 90. So I have a 90 from the hip to the thigh, a 90 from the thigh across the knee to the shin, and then a 90 because my ankle and my flexed foot is creating the last 90 degree. Now you can go to the forearms and you push back through the sits bones. So make sure you're not looking like this with the tailbone up. You want abs in, pushing back through the sits bones. So even though this is more of a holding stretchy pose for the hips, we're still keeping energy in our feet and still keeping energy up through the abdominals. You don't want all the weight to fall down. You're pushing back through the sits bones. Now just keep breathing into the groin, trying to hold, trying to relax a little deeper into the inner thigh area, into the hips. If you feel like your chest is falling, lift up, keep driving back. If you feel like it's hurting your knees, try flexing your feet a little bit more. Take one more breath here together. Push back a little bit farther. And then on the exhale, now bring the hips forward, down, and let the heels pop up. Nice. Now once you're on the mat, ooh, my floor is a little bit cold. You're gonna push the feet together and bring the inner arches of the foot down. So it feels kind of like a chicken wing action on the femur and the hip joint. And then lift the hips, take the toes. I tuck my toes under, walk the hands back, and bring the knees together. Squaring back forward. Oops, like I said, I didn't square back forward for the position, but I think you all got it. Let's cross the ankles and take it onto our back to finish up. So you can go a few breaths with the legs up in the air. You want the heels, knees, hips in one line so you have weight down on the sacrum. Let's take a breath here. If you need to work through your ankle, feel free to. And then we're gonna bend the knees, take them towards one side of the mat. Couple options, you could just keep the twist, reaching the top arm up and across. You can take some circles on the top arm, or my favorite, the bottom arm binds to the top leg. Now I'm holding and stretching through the hip flexors here. And the top arm is gonna circle open, and then reach in the opposite direction. I'm trying to melt the rib cage, melt the shoulder back to the mat. Always follow with the gaze in the opposite direction to finish your twist. 3 deep breaths here. Try to sink the shoulders, sink the rib cage. Feel free to pause the video and stay there for as long as you like. Just for the sake of the video, I'm going to move on to the other side. So before we rotate to the other side, give yourself a little sacrum release. You just roll around the sacrum to get a natural arch in the spine. And then switch directions. So whichever twist you took on the other side, go ahead and take on this side. Remember to finish the twist by gazing towards the open palm. You're finishing the twist all the way up through the fascial lines that wrap to the back of the eyeballs. On your exhales, try to melt a little heavier. Try to relax a little more through the shoulders. This is where I could just fall asleep. One more breath. Exhale, releasing the bind. Again, pause the video if you want to stay there longer. We're going to finish our class with a Supta Baddha Konasana. So, your tailbone is down, your spine is long. I always adjust my spine so that my low back can be glued to the mat. Now, hands to the belly. Give yourself a little belly massage. Soften all those belly muscles. Always going in the direction of our digestive system. So you go from the right hip around to the left hip and down. And then with the belly muscles soft, the wrists are going to the top of the hip line. And on the exhale, you lock out the arms. So you want to make sure that you're creating as much space as you can, getting any cracks and pops out of the spine. Keep the belly muscles soft. See what happens. I'm going to stop talking to release my belly muscles and do it. I felt cracks all the way from the neck down the spine to the sacrum. That was great. So you can give a little pulse, a little shimmy in the hips as well when you're holding that pressure. And then when you release, it's just a very gentle release. And you can finish lying here on your back for a few moments. Hopefully you have a nice song you can play. Or you can take it up and get your day started. However that helped you, I hope it did help you. And I will see you next time. Like and subscribe.